Chapter 1. The Year 1899. Red Dead Redemption 2. It began in 1899. The West isn't dead yet, but it's coughing. And after a ferry job goes south in Blackwater, Dutch von der Linde's gang is limping through the snow-covered mountains, barely alive, hunted by lawmen and Pinkertons. That botched heist left behind more than bodies. It left ghosts, and they're closing in fast. This is where we meet Arthur Morgan, our lead player. Loyal, gruff, and quietly observant. Dutch took him in as a kid, so Arthur rides for him with near-religious conviction. But even loyalty can freeze when you're starving in the mountains. Desperate for shelter, Dutch, Arthur, and Micah stumble upon a cabin. Turns out it's crawling with O'Driscolls. Yep, them, the gang's longtime rivals. Guns come out, bodies hit the snow, and just like that, the feud is reignited. Meanwhile, Dutch starts playing mind games. Arthur starts doubting them, and Micah? Well, Micah starts being Micah, which is to say, irritating. In the aftermath, Arthur finds a woman hidden in the basement. Sadie Adler, widowed, furious, and freezing. The O'Driscolls killed her husband, torched her home, and she's got nothing left but a shotgun and a grudge. She joins the gang, but make no mistake, she's not there to cry. Soon after, John Marston goes missing. Yep, that John. Arthur and Javier track him through the blizzard, wolves snapping at their heels and drag him home half dead. At this time, the gang's broken, cold, and scattered. But Dutch, he's already thinking bigger. Word comes that Colum O'Driscoll's hold up nearby. So Dutch gathers the crew, Arthur, Micah, Bill, Javier, Lenny, and rides out. The plan? Hit them before they hit us. Or, so he says. In reality, Dutch wants to steal their next job out from under them. After the shootout, Arthur captures one of Colum's boys, Kieran Duffy. Instead of gutting him, Dutch lets him live. Arthur's suspicious. Dutch? He's already spinning some story about trust and second chances. It won't be the last time he talks pretty while the gang stares at a corpse. With O'Driscoll intel in hand, Dutch sets his sights on a train owned by one Leviticus Cornwall, one of those early American tycoons who probably eats diamonds for breakfast. The heist works? Barely. But it lights a fuse. Cornwall wants blood, and he's got the Pinkertons on speed dial, including two names you'll want to remember, Agent Milton and Edgar Ross. They came up the mountain running from one bad job and came back down with a price on their heads, a traitor in their ranks, and a storm that never really ended. Chapter 2. Horseshoe Overlook.
We are safe now, and we are far too poor. So it is time for everyone to get to...
After barely surviving the snow-blasted chaos in Coulter, the gang finally escapes the cold and rolls into New Hanover, like a bunch of frozen tumbleweeds. Dutch sets up camp on a scenic little ridge called Horseshoe Overlook. The plan? Lay low, make some money, and maybe finally retire in peace. Which, coming from Dutch, is like saying, let's just rob one last train. Arthur and a few others head to the town of Valentine, a muddy little spot full of drunks, bar fights, and livestock that somehow smells worse than death. While picking up supplies, Arthur runs into a man who recognizes him from Blackwater. Great. Just what they needed. A reminder that the law is still breathing down their necks. This chapter is where we really get to know the gang. Arthur helps his ex, Mary Linton, search for her wayward brother who's joined a religious cult. Because why not? And then somehow ends up breaking Micah out of jail. That one? Total disaster. Micah starts a shootout that turns Valentine into a war zone. At this point, Arthur is basically babysitting a lunatic with a revolver. There's also a tender moment when Arthur takes Jack Marston fishing with Hosea and Dutch. It's one of those rare, peaceful scenes that almost makes you forget this is a game where you rob people for a living. Almost. But peace never lasts. The gang keeps chasing quick cash, but every job seems cursed. Pinkertons are closing in, Micah's causing chaos, and even the sheep-rustling gig goes sideways. The gang might have traded snowstorms for sunshine, but trouble? That stuff follows them like a bad smell on Micah. Chapter 3. Clemens Point. So, after the whole Valentine sheep job turns into a full-blown shootout, thanks again, Cornwall, the gang's cover is blown. Time to pack up again. Dutch moves the gang to a cozy little spot called Clemens Point near Rhodes. It's swampy, but at least it's not full of bounty posters. Here, Dutch stumbles upon what he sees as a golden opportunity. Two rich families locked in an old-school feud, Hatfield and McCoy style. The Greys and the Braithwaites, both dripping with money and pettiness. Naturally, Dutch decides to work both sides, because what could possibly go wrong with conning two powerful, violent families? Arthur and the crew run errands, stir the pot, and try to milk both clans without getting caught. Spoiler, they get caught. Sheriff Gray sets them up and Sean gets his brains blown out. And if that wasn't enough, the Braithwaites kidnap Jack. Dutch completely snaps. The gang charges their manor, torches the place, and wipes out the family. Except for Catherine Braithwaite. Before she walks into the flames, she tells them Jack's been sold to Angelo Bronte in St. Denis, because of course a mob boss is involved now. But before they can hit the road, agents Milton and Ross show up again. They offer Dutch a deal, turn himself in, and the rest of the gang goes free. Dutch predictably says no, because nothing screams selfless leader like dragging everyone further into the fire. Dutch keeps saying they're one score away from freedom, but at this point, it's starting to feel like the only thing piling up is bodies. Chapter 4. Shady Belle.
Welcome home, all of you, to my humble abode.
After barely escaping the last shootout, Dutch moves the gang to a creepy old mansion called Shady Belle. It's dusty, dark, probably haunted, but yeah, no Pinkertons in sight yet. Arthur and Lenny clean out the Lemoyne Raiders squatting there, and just like that, Shady Belle becomes the gang's new temporary home. The goal now? Rescue Jack from the clutches of one Angelo Bronte, a well-dressed, mustache-twirling mobster who lives in the fancy part of St. Denis. Arthur sneaks around, gets into Bronte's good books by taking out some grave robbers, because nothing says friendship like clearing zombies. And this way, Jack is returned clean, fed, and weirdly polite. Why? Because he was living better than the rest of the gang. Bronte even invites Dutch and the crew to a party, where they rub shoulders with St. Denis's high society. It's a lot of wine, small talk, and pretending to know how to use a salad fork. But behind all that, they all are digging for intel, hoping for one last big score. Soon after, Hosea lines up a riverboat job. Josiah Trelawney, the gang's part-time magician and full-time con man, sneaks Arthur into a poker game to cozy up to the dealer. Arthur wins big. Turns out bluffing comes easy when you've held up trains. But again, everything goes sideways at the vault. Alarms go off, bullets fly, and our heroes end up swimming for their lives. Meanwhile, Arthur juggles about 6 side plots at once. He helps Rainsfall and his son Eagleflies fight off the U.S. Army, rescues Tilly from the Foreman brothers, who clearly forgot Arthur is not to be messed with, and even finds time for Sadie to deliver some disturbing news. Kieran, the ex-O'Driscoll-turned-friendly horse groomer, has gone missing. The mystery is solved when his severed head arrives on horseback. Yep, the O'Driscolls are back, and they brought the horror movie energy. The gang defends the mansion in a brutal firefight, but the real damage is happening inside Dutch's head. He's not thinking straight anymore, ranting about fate, freedom, and grand plans that somehow keep ending in blood. When Bronte double-crosses them again, Dutch takes it personally, so he feeds him to the alligators. Yes, literally. Even with Bronte out of the picture, the gang pushes ahead with Hosea's bank robbery plan, but everything unravels. As soon as the safe opens, Pinkertons storm the place. Hosea is captured and executed right there in front of them. Lenny's gunned down during the escape. John gets arrested. It's chaos. Dutch says they can still win, but at this point, even Arthur's starting to doubt if the man's chasing freedom or just losing his mind. Dutch wanted to play chess with the world. Problem is, everyone else was holding shotguns. And Arthur? He's just trying not to be the next pawn sacrificed. Chapter 5. Guarma.
You're alive.
After the St. Denis bank job goes full disaster, Hosea gone, Lenny gone, John arrested. Dutch pulls off his boldest escape yet, getting everyone onto a boat headed for Cuba. The plan? Lay low, catch their breath, regroup, maybe sip a mojito. What actually happens? The boat gets caught in a storm and promptly yeets itself apart. Arthur, Dutch, Javier, Bill, and Micah wash up on the tropical island of Guarma, sunburned, confused, and very much not on vacation. Before they can even dry off, local soldiers scoop them up like lost luggage. But lucky for them, they're rescued by a group of rebels fighting against Colonel Alberto Fusar, a man who makes Dutch look humble. Guarma is basically one giant sugar plantation, powered by forced labor and kept in line by one very angry dictator with a big gun and zero chill. Dutch, being Dutch, smells opportunity and starts promising the rebels help, as long as it means getting off the island. Arthur? He's just trying not to die of heat stroke or get eaten by jungle cats. The gang ends up fighting off Cuban reinforcements, blowing up forts, and toppling Colonel Fusar in dramatic fashion. There are cannons, explosions, and enough bullet casings to make a small raft. Honestly, it's the most unplanned plan Dutch has ever pulled off, and that's saying something. Eventually, the crew secures a ship back to America, waving goodbye to tropical tyranny and hello again to their regularly scheduled outlaw chaos. Dutch said they'd retire rich. Instead, they took a detour through a revolution, a war, and enough humidity to melt a horse. Chapter 6, Part 1. Beaver Hollow. After escaping the tropical madness of Guarma and barely dodging a few dozen Pinkertons in St. Denis, Arthur heads back to Shady Belle, hoping to regroup, maybe even breathe. But the camp? Empty. Everyone's gone. Just a note left behind like a bad breakup. The gang's moved to Lakay, a swampy little slice of misery that smells like disappointment and damp socks. Arthur finds the crew, but before anyone can share a warm welcome, the Pinkertons show up again. Because of course they do. Another gunfight erupts. Another escape. But this time something feels Off. Dutch starts suspecting there's a rat. Milton seems to know way too much. The gang relocates once again, this time to Beaver Hollow, a spooky cave surrounded by dead trees and the overall vibe of a horror movie. Perfect place for morale, right? With Hosea gone, Dutch fully slides into his "I'm the only one who thinks around here" phase. Arthur and Charles clear out the new hideout while Dutch's girlfriend Molly, sick of being ignored, drunkenly claims she's the snitch, which she's not. She just wants Dutch to look her in the eyes for once. But Susan doesn't take chances. She shoots Molly on the spot, no questions asked. One gang, no trust. Plenty of bullets. Meanwhile, Arthur meets Sadie in St. Denis with a rescue plan. Break John out of Sisika prison. But before anything starts, Arthur collapses in the street, coughing like a dying mule. A kind stranger helps him to a doctor, and the diagnosis hits like a train. Tuberculosis. Arthur's got it, and it's terminal. Suddenly, all the shootouts and scores mean nothing. Arthur isn't thinking about money anymore, he's thinking about what legacy he'll leave behind. So when Sadie says, "Let's go save John," Arthur doesn't hesitate. They break him out and drag him back to camp. Dutch? He's furious, claims it was too risky, but he's also too busy spiraling into paranoia, trusting Micah, the sneaky little worm, more than anyone else. Still, Arthur rides with Dutch and Micah to Ansburg to confront Cornwall. But Dutch, being Dutch, flips the script and demands $10,000 and a boat from Cornwall, like he's ordering lunch. Shockingly, the oil baron says no. Dutch shoots him dead, chaos breaks out, and they barely escape with a stack of Cornwall's private papers. And before those papers can even be read, there's one more ghost to bury. Arthur rides out with Dutch and Sadie to see Colum O'Driscoll hang, a long overdue execution. But when the last two O'Driscoll men show up to watch, Sadie says nope, guns them down mid-crowd, and all hell breaks loose. Another day, another gunfight. And Dutch, he's slipping fast. Arthur may be dying, but Dutch's mind is going faster, and Micah's whispers are getting louder. The gang was rotting from the inside out. Chapter 6, Part 2, Beaver Hollow. After Colum's dramatic goodbye, Arthur and the gang shift focus back to business. And by business, we mean blowing up bridges. Using Cornwall's stolen dynamite, they rig Bacchus Bridge to explode and derail a government supply train. It works, but not without nearly turning Arthur and John into outlaw barbecue. This close call isn't just a scrape, it's a wake-up. Arthur and John start talking, not about guns or money, but Dutch. The man they used to follow is now looking more like a man they need to follow away from. Even Arthur, who's been clashing with John since day one, starts to worry more about John's future than Dutch's plans. Right on cue, Eaglefly shows up needing help. The U.S. Army stole horses from his tribe at Fort Wallace. Dutch, of course, sees a noble cause, or at least a perfect excuse for chaos. What starts as helping the Wapiti soon turns into Dutch, using their struggle to wage his personal war against the system. Spoiler, it's less about justice and more about Dutch liking the sound of his own voice. This war for freedom fantasy leads the gang into an assault on Cornwall's oil refinery. It's loud, it's messy, and by the end, the Wapiti are worse off, and Arthur's been left for dead by the same man he's bled for. Again. But Arthur survives. Again. And guess what? Dutch has another final job lined up, intercepting a government train. Arthur's had enough, but the job goes ahead. In the chaos, John tries to free a burning train car and gets shot. Dutch says he tried to save him, then just strolls back and claims John didn't make it. Back at camp, Tilly drops the next bomb. Abigail's been kidnapped. Dutch says leave her. Arthur says over my dead body, which is increasingly not a metaphor. Sadie joins him because, of course, she does, and the two ride to Van Horn. There, Arthur meets Agent Milton one last time. Milton gloats. Arthur bleeds. Then Abigail saves the day with Sadie's gun. Because women in this story do not play around. Back at camp, Arthur calls out Micah as the rat. Micah tries to weasel out. It's a standoff. Then John walks in, alive, shot, limping, and furious, but alive. He tells everyone Dutch left him for dead. Susan starts to side with Arthur until Micah shoots her. And just like that, the gang's shattered. Dutch stands silently, watching his whole family crumble, and in the end, he walks away, choosing Micah over the two people who were most loyal to him. Arthur gives John one final piece of advice and hands him everything he's got left, then limps off toward his own ending. Depending on the choices you've made, he either dies peacefully under the sun, or not so peacefully in the dirt. Dutch lost his way. Micah was always rotten. But Arthur? Arthur found something in the end. Maybe not redemption, but a reason. And sometimes that's all a man needs. Last chapters, Epilogue 1 and 2.
Just a ranch hand then.
Just a ranch hand.
8 years after Arthur's final ride into the sunset, we find John Marston, trying to be a ranch hand. Yep, our former outlaw is herding cows, mending fences, and waking up before sunrise. All in the name of a quiet life for Abigail and Jack. He takes a job at Pronghorn Ranch, does his best not to shoot anyone, and even starts making friends. But peace? Yeah, it doesn't last. Enter the Laramie Gang, a bunch of mustache-twirling troublemakers who rough up the ranch and steal some cattle. John doesn't take kindly to that. Guns come out, cattle comes back, and just like that, Abigail's packing her bags. She doesn't want gunslinging John. She wants husband and father John. So he tries to earn her trust the only way he knows how: land and sweat. With help from David Geddes, John buys a dusty plot called Beecher's Hope. Sounds nice, right? With Charles and Uncle by his side. One reliable, one mostly asleep. John starts building a house, literally hammering his way into a new chapter. He even teams up with Sadie again, who's now a full-blown bounty hunter, and starts hunting bad guys for cash. The legal kind of bad guy hunting. Things start looking up. The house is done. Jack's smiling. Abigail comes back. John proposes. She says yes. For a moment, it actually feels like that normal life Arthur dreamed of is finally happening. But ghosts don't stay buried. Sadie hears whispers. Micah Bell, the snake who sold them all out, is still alive. And just like that, the old fire in John's chest reignites. Despite Abigail's begging, John, Sadie, and Charles saddle up. They find Micah's gang, shoot their way through, and finally come face to face with the traitor himself. But before the final bullet flies, guess who shows up? Dutch, Van, Dare, Linda, guns drawn, eyes cold. He doesn't say much, just watches the chaos he helped create. John pleads. Sadie's bleeding, Micah's ranting, and Dutch? He finally says nothing, then shoots Micah in the chest. No speeches, no big twist. Just done. He walks away, leaves the Blackwater money behind, and disappears into the mountains like a ghost with regrets. Sadie and Charles take their cut and ride off to new lives. John returns home one last time, not as an outlaw, but as a man who tried. He marries Abigail under the wide open sky. Jack stands tall beside him. Beecher's Hope is finally a real home. But in the background, Edgar Ross, the slick little weasel from the Bureau, starts sniffing around. Micah's dead, and someone's going to answer for it. Arthur may have found peace. John tried to build it. But peace in the West, it always comes with a price. And the final chapter is just getting started.